Hello and welcome to the show. Today's podcast recording is going to be a very noisy one because the kids are at home and I'm recording late in the evening. Also, NEPA has been misbehaving powerfully, so all my neighbors are running their generators, and these are just some of the benefits, some of the things we have to look forward to, being a Nigerian. Anyway, so today what we're going to tackle is not my family issues or NEPA issues, but rather we're going to look at why startup founders should engage in sales, why startup founders should do selling firsthand. So that's what we're going to do today on the podcast. Now, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, my name is Tavishima Ayede. I am your host. I'm a former lawyer turned business consultant. And if you like these sorts of things, how do you sell? Who should be selling? What's the best way to go about selling? Then subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple iTunes, on YouTube, on any player of your choice, because this is what we talk about over here on the podcast every single day. Okay, well, every other day, because I'm not here every day. Then, if you'd love to connect with me, you can call, send me a text message, or send me a WhatsApp message on the 08064662140. So if you have questions, you have comments, you have queries, or you'd like us to collaborate on one or two projects, then reach out. And please remember, when I say collaboration, collaboration means I eat and you eat. If you call me and everything is all stacked in your favor, then that's not a collaboration. And I'm going to politely tell you to get out of here. All right, so why startup founders should engage in sales, why startup founders should do more selling firsthand. Now, for those of you who've listened to this podcast for a while, you know that this is an old idea that I've talked about on the podcast over and over and over again. And the reason why is because this is a very important topic because, the startup craze has hit Nigeria. And of course, lots of us want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg. And because of that, people think that founders think that, you can come up with a brilliant idea. You have a tech founder, and then you hire someone who can sell. So in the old podcast episodes, I have given some reasons why the founder is the best person who is qualified to sell, at least in the beginning. And that's because the founder is the person who has product knowledge. It is your baby. You're the one who has come up with the idea. You're the one who knows the problem that you're trying to solve. You have intimacy with the problem. You know this thing inside, outside. In fact, you spend more time with this app, with this business problem, than you do with your spouse or with your girlfriend. So you're very intimate with this idea. And because of this intimacy with the idea, you, the founder, you have lots of passion that you're going to use when you're putting forward this idea into the market. And when you're talking to a potential customer, a potential partner, a potential stakeholder, a potential whatever. So, in my older podcast episodes, I've said that these are the reasons why the founder is best qualified to sell, at least in the beginning. Because you have product knowledge, because you're intimate with the problem, you have passion putting forward these ideas. Now, some of you will say, okay, if I have said all this in the past, then why the hell am I making today's episode? Okay, the reason why I'm doing that is because I now have one new reason why the founder should sell. And the reason why is because it will put you, the founder, in this unique position. It will help you, it will give you the data, it will give you the perspective, and it will let you know and help you validate your business idea. Now, what does validation mean? Validation just means that you're able to show that this is a good idea to bring to the market. You want to show that your product, you want to be sure that your service is a good one to bring to the market. So that is what validation is about. Now, how do you get validation, or market validation as I like to call it? You do that if you're able to show, number one, that there's some demand for this, your product. Some people like the damn thing. If you can show that, good. You're beginning to show some market validation. Then you also have to be able to establish that you can sell this thing at a reasonable price per head, per seat, per license, per user, per unit, per whatever it is that you want to sell it at. That is part of validating. Then we also need to be able to establish that enough people are willing to pay for this thing because we're trying to make sure that the unit economics pans out. Now, let me repeat: market validation, how we establish it. Number one, show that there is some demand, that people like this thing. Then it's not enough just that people like this thing, it has to be enough that people are willing to pay for it and that the price is reasonable. And then we also need to make sure that enough of those people are willing to pay for it and that the unit economics work. It is only when we've done this that we can now show that, okay, there's market validation. The market is saying that this is a good idea that you should continue to put out. Because if we show that there's demand but people are not willing to pay for it, then what are we doing here? We might as well pivot and move to something else. If we show that there's some demand and people are willing to pay for it, but they're not willing to pay enough, so the pay no make sense, then what are we doing here? We might as well pivot. If we find out that people like it, they're willing to pay, and they're willing to pay, per head, and the thing kind of makes sense, but let's say you need, 100,000 people or 5,000 people or whatever you need to make this thing work, but you can't find those 5,000 people, then what are we doing here? We might as well pivot. So that is why all these elements are important. Now, another word for validation or market validation, as I like to call it, is product market fit. So for those of you who've been listening to those fancy tech podcasts, you've been hearing product market fit, and you're wondering, what are these people saying? Now you know what they're saying. So the reason why it's a good idea for you, the founder, to do the selling is because when you're doing the selling in these early days, you are in the driver's seat. And of course, when you're in the driver's seat, you can see the road with your own two koro eyes. If there's pothole, you can swerve. If there's any danger, you can dodge it. So selling puts you in the front seat. And what that means is you're going to get all the qualitative signals early. Now, for those of you who have a tech bent, you guys already know about quantitative signals. Quantitative just means you're looking at your dashboard, you're looking at your numbers, you're looking at your whatever, and you're getting clear signs about where to move and stuff like that. Now, there's other kinds of data that you guys are not so familiar with, and that's the kind that I like, which is qualitative data. Now, qualitative data is information that you can't reduce to numbers. You can't put it in a statistical model. But when you're getting insights, when you're getting opinions, when you're noticing certain trends, it is only when you are selling one-on-one that you can be seeing these things. Before it shows up in the data, if you as a founder is selling, you begin to see some trends that, okay, I thought this was a good idea. But as I have spoken to the last 20, 25, 30, 50 people, it is as if they are feeling that ABC ideas or ABC problems are more important. You are getting qualitative signals. And this is what you can use you can take this knowledge to now reiterate on your product or your service. Because you are thinking one thing, as you've entered inside the market now and you're talking to people, based on body language, based on what they're saying, or based on how they're using your products, based on what they're doing, you can now see that, you know what, I thought it was one thing, but the market is giving me signs that is something else. So when you are selling as a founder, you are in the driver's seat, you will be able to see quickly whether this is a good idea or not. You'll be able to answer this question yourself, whether you should pivot or not. You won't have to wait until board meeting when you people are checking different statistical models or different this or different that. You would have started getting a sense by yourself that this is a good idea or this is not a good idea. Now, funny enough, this is also an idea that I've come across, that I've also seen expressed in another podcast. It was, I can't remember anyway, I think it was a podcast about cybersecurity. So, this idea is not something that is unique to me or other people who are in the sales, sales and selling field, other people, other professionals in other fields are also saying that there's a benefit to you trying to sell and trying to bring your product or service to the market yourself. So, you as a founder, what are the kinds of things that you should do? Number one, prospecting. If you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you are aware that prospecting is the thought process, it is the activity, it's the strategy, it's the tactics, it is the whatever around trying to figure out who might be interested in your product or who might be interested in your service. So you should do that. You should sit down. You should do the thinking. You should be trying to figure out who might be interested in the product or service. Another thing that founders should be doing is outreach or channel strategy, as you guys like to put it. So, outreach or channel strategy just means now that we know who might be interested with our product or service, and we know where these people are physically or where they hang out online, which channel, which tool, which medium, which platform are we going to use to try and reach out to these people? So, you as a founder should be engaged in this sort of activity. As a founder, you should also be starting conversations with people. Now, what kind of conversation should you be having? In sales, we call them qualification and discovery. That's just a fancy way of saying we should be asking questions about the people because we need to know them. We're trying to figure out a few things: demographics and psychographics. Who are they? Name, age, height, location, sex, occupation, blah, blah, blah. We need to know because this will tell us the use case scenarios of our product. Who are the people that use this thing best? Who are the people that like this thing best? So that's why qualification or asking questions around the person is important. Then, discovery. Discovery is when we ask questions around the problem. So, okay, I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, or seconds ago rather, about use case scenarios. So, what are the problems that the product or service, what are the problems that our app, our product, or service solve, or how do people use them to solve this problem? And of course, when we're asking questions around the problem or the vision, the vision that the customer is trying to achieve, or the problems that they're trying to solve, we're also trying to figure out if this is a serious enough problem to solve. So we should be asking them questions about. So I'm trying not to overload you guys with technical terms, but in sales, these kinds of questions are called implication questions and need payoff questions. That is when you're trying to find out from people that, okay, look, this is a serious problem or serious enough, but if you don't use this app, if you don't use this product, if you don't use this solution, like what's the worst that can happen, or how do you cope? So if you have this brilliant idea that you're putting out to the market, and people think, yeah, it's nice, we need it, but at the end of the day, like, if this thing is not here, they can cope in some other way, then perhaps you don't have a serious enough problem that your product, that your service, that your app solves. And maybe it is time for you to now start thinking of pivoting or moving or refining the idea one way or another. Then, as a founder, you should also be involved in making proposals, making presentations. Now, that is the part of the sales process where you're telling a potential customer that this is how my product, my service, my app can help you. As a founder, you should also be trying to gain a commitment, which is getting people to drop a deposit, getting people to sign up for whatever it is that the reasonable next step is. But bottom line, like I said, if you're engaged in all these processes, that is prospecting, talking to people who might be interested in your product or service, trying to figure out what is the appropriate channel, starting the conversation with people, learning about them and their interests, figuring out how they interact with your app, with your product, with your service, trying to figure out if this is a serious enough problem, and then you're making proposals and presentations, and you're trying to close on some accounts. If you do all this, you're going to be getting qualitative data. Remember, not quantitative, because I know that you tech guys, you love quantitative data. You love things that can be reduced to ratios, to stats, to statistics, to this and to that. But you guys lose sight of the fact that qualitative data is important. As in, you're talking to somebody and you are getting, you're getting some kind feelings. That is qualitative data. You're getting some kind feelings, some kind insights, some kind, what's that word? Anyway, forgive me, the English is escaping my head. But anyway, you understand what I'm talking about. So, yeah, that and these are reasons why the founder should be involved. And these are the kind of activities that you should be involved in or involved with. And of course, I'm sure that you guys have noticed that I think you tech founders, you guys try to take your hands off too quickly. You guys try to automate everything too quickly. Relax, get your hands dirty, for a little bit longer. But for those of you who are thinking, look, I just want to be Mark Zuckerberg and I want to have, $1 billion in my account, don't worry. Yeah, selling is dirty, it's grimy, I understand. And you don't want to do this forever, but don't worry, you won't have to do this forever. All you have to do when you're going through all this is make sure you document all the processes. Put everything down in an SOP. That's something that you tech people like to say. SOP, standard operating procedure. Write everything down. Document this thing. Let it be on a sheet of paper. Let it be in a Google document. Let it be, wherever, so that other people who are coming in to sell on your behalf, the people who you will recruit, they will be the people who you are going to delegate the selling function to. They're going to be able to refer to this document. They're going to be able to learn from it. They're going to be able to follow this thing. So don't worry, you won't have to sell forever. Just make sure you're documenting everything, writing it down. Come up with an SOP, standard operating procedure. Use that to recruit people. Use that to train people. Use that to delegate the selling functions. You start off like that, you won't be too bad. But summary, let me say one more time. Startup founders, it is a good idea to get your hands dirty in sales because a lot of you want to answer this question: should we pivot or not? Should I be here or not? If you're with the boys in the trenches and you're selling in the field, sorry, boys and girls, because of course, girls sell in the tech space too. So if you're in the trenches, you have all the information that you need. So instead of faffing around for 2 years, then you now issue a press release. You say that you are now pivoting. When you're in the trenches with the boys and girls, you have all the data that you need. So that even if it's just, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, you know that, okay, this thing makes sense or this thing no pure. And then you'll be able to bounce or you'll be able to remain or you'll be able to double down and refocus. So that's it. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Remember, if you would like to connect with me, you can call, send me a text message or send me a WhatsApp message on 08064662140. So if you have questions, you have comments, you have queries, or you want to suggest a collaboration, then reach out. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I will catch you all some other time.